and welcome to episode 12 of the Time to Calibrate podcast. This will be our year-end type show. I'm Mark Levesque, regular contributor for War and Wound. Joining me today are Bob Allaby from Time to Go Timepiece and Travel and the YouTube channel, and Brent Rubiar from the Calibrated Wrist. There's no guests today. This will just be a hostful episode. So guys, how are you doing and what's on your wrists?
Hey, good. What's up, Mark?
Oh, good, man. End of year coming, vacation time starting this afternoon. Not going to go back to work till January 6th. I'm pretty happy about that.
Awesome. That's great. What about you, Bob? What's up?
Same thing. We're busy getting ready for the holidays. We usually host at Christmas, so we're going to have probably about 15 people over for Christmas dinner this year, so kind of getting prepped for all of that.
Excellent, excellent. Well, this morning I have the Longines Legend Diver 39mm anthracite dial. That's the newest watch in my collection. It's hogging all the wrist time these days. I'm very, very pleased with it. And this morning I actually put it on a gray NATO from Artem Straps, and I really, really like the look.
Yeah, it looks good. I saw pictures of that. It looks amazing.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah. What about you, Bob?
Today I am wearing the Casio Edifice I've been posting quite a bit lately. It's sort of a bit of I guess you'd say an homage. I hate the word homage, but to the Zenith El Primero, and just a fun, affordable.
I really like the look of that thing. I got to admit, every time I see it on your feed, I think, oh, geez, that is a nice looking piece. And yeah, like you say, super affordable.
Is the bracelet folded links or is it solid?
The links are solid, but the end links are folded. So it's a typical Casio bracelet, kind of what you'd expect from Casio.
Sure.
But
so a whole lot of fun for a whole lot less money.
Yeah, 150, I think it's 150 US for it. So yeah, it's a pretty cool watch.
Right on.
Yeah, I've got my Tudor Black Bay Pro. I joined you, Bob. I got myself one of those. I have been after a Tudor GMT for a very, very long time. Something that I've wanted since the black one came out. And I had an opportunity a long time ago to trade for one for my Omega Railmaster. Value-wise, was about the same at the time. And I wound up getting scammed. I don't know if I've told you guys this story before, but someone from Iceland sent me a box of candles instead of the Black Bay GMT. And yeah, you guys laughed. It wasn't very funny at the time. I was quite upset. And after doing a little bit of research, it turns out that I wasn't the only one who got scammed by the same guy.
Wow.
And we found the guy's Facebook page. We found his girlfriend on Facebook. We found his parents on Facebook. We found his employer. I got Interpol involved. I got the RCMP involved.
My goodness.
And yeah, and we put so much pressure on the guy that my Omega Railmaster showed back up. I got my watch back. A couple other guys got their watches back. And yeah, we never heard from the guy again. But that was quite the experience. And I've been after one of those ever since. And now that, you know, as we talked offline before, there's a little bit more disposable income. I've been saving up my pennies, and I was going to buy myself a Tudor GMT, a Black Bay GMT, the white one, because, you know, I like white watches. And when I went to try it on, it's something about the size or the length of it and the length of the clasp underneath that's just didn't fit right on my wrist. And I never really considered the Black Bay Pro. I mean, I've liked it, and then this whole talk about it being too thick and all this other stuff, but it's the same thickness as the Black Bay GMT. And when I put it on, it just melted on my wrist as if it should be there. And I just fell in love with it. The dial color, even the Fotina that people seem to be crazy, but I love it. It just works. The deep, you know, being the same color as the Fotina, the T-Fit clasp, unlike my Ranger that I had earlier this year, does not pull my hair. I think the rivet bracelet, or the way the last link near the clasp meets the edge, does not pinch the hair at all. It fits absolutely beautifully, and I'm head over heels over it. So I'm very, very happy with it. So I finally got myself my Tudor GMT.
Congratulations,
awesome, man.
Thank you. So this is our final episode for 2024. And after 6 months of podcasting, we thought maybe it'd be nice to end on a lighter note. No guests, just the three of us chatting. And Roby came up with some really great questions. So let's get started with all that. So what watches have come and gone in each of your collections in 2024? Bob, how about you go first?
Yeah, so there's a couple of highlights for me, and one is the Black Bay Pro, same watch as you. I've been eyeing that one since it came out. I was actually a toss-up between the PO1 and the Pro. and I found a great deal on the Pro. I actually just recently, we were in Vegas last week, tried on the PO1 again, and I'm definitely glad I went with the Pro now. I still love the PO1, but the Pro is like, it just feels me. I love how it wears. I love the size. I actually like the thickness of the watch.
Yeah,
it kind of gives
it's grown on me too.
Yeah,
I actually like the weight, the heft, the solidity.
100%.
It's great.
The other one that is a highlight for me this year is the Isotope Mercury Shadow. Jose's a good friend of mine, and I've been lucky to see firsthand the brand grow from pretty well day one. I've always struggled to find a dress watch that wasn't boring for me, and this is the one. I just love the uniqueness of it. So one big one that left the collection is the Zinn 157. I have a thing for the Lemania 5100, and the one I really want to get is the blacked out Zinn 142 BS. A friend of mine has one that I'm trying to get him to give up, so we'll see if I can maybe pry that off of his hands to replace the 157 that I ended up selling this year.
If you need a little help, Brenton, I can hold him down.
I might. He's kind of a big guy, actually.
So are we.
Well, then we take that back.
What about you, Brenton?
Well, so for me, it was actually quite a bit of a shakeup, and I'll talk more about it later. I think my collection needs an even bigger shakeup than that. But I sold my Titoni Seascalper 300, and I really liked that watch. It just wasn't getting a lot of wrist time, and so I thought, for a watch of that value, it was silly to have it sitting around in a box, and so I unloaded that. And then on maybe the regret side of things, I let go of my Seiko Samurai, the orange dial. And I really did like that watch for a long time, but same deal, just wasn't getting worn. And I really do believe that you should wear the watches that you own. So those were two that left. On the other side of things, I ended up picking up more than left. And so I guess back in June, I picked up the Omega Seamaster Professional, the 300M. Talked about it a lot on this show already. It's the 2531.8 reference. This one comes from 1998, but essentially that's the Bond watch. I love it. I wear that a lot of the time. And what I like most about it, too, is a bit of the story behind that. The fact that it was a costume designer, Lindy Hemming, that chose that for the movie. She was hoping to make a switch up for the sort of perception of Bond. So, gone were Savile Row suits, and in came Brioni. Gone was the Aston Martin. In came in a BMW. There was a much more European continental flair to Brosnan's Bond. And so in came the Seamaster. And so I really do like that one. I don't ever see that one leaving the collection. Then in September, I had no idea I was going to do this, but I ended up picking up two other vintage pieces. One was an Omega Genève. It runs the hand-winding movement, the 1030. It came with box and paper. So what's really cool is that I can see it was originally sold in Zurich at a place called Heineken in 1977, and that place is still around. So I would really love
cool.
It is very cool. I would really love to just drop in with the box and papers and just, to have a look around, chat with the people that are there today, I also picked up the Longines Ultrachron, the 8024. It runs the very first high beat movement that Longines ever made. It's called the Caliber 431. So I really like that from a historical perspective as well. But boy, I love the bracelet, love the tone of the dial and things like that. And it's very, very accurate. Back in the day, it was supposed to run within minus or plus 2 seconds. I haven't put it on a time grapher, but I can tell you it is actually still to this day very, very accurate, precise. And I bought those both from Oliver at Coin Watch Co. and I've been very, very pleased, actually. And then completely out of the blue, I say that I've been looking at this watch since March. I saw the Longines Legend Diver for the first time at a novelties event in New York, and I kind of coveted it ever since then. And then Longines was sending me one to review, and I thought, yep, now's the time. And so I ended up with
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they were hooking me, I gotta tell you. So that's a pretty busy year, actually, watch-wise for me. I'm not normally a massive buyer of watches, so yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the Titoni. I had the Titoni 600 Seascoper for a while, the blue one with the red accents, and it's surprisingly impressive in person, and it does look a lot like a Black Bay. I mean, it's got the same visual cues with the bigger lugs and all that stuff, and I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic watch.
Well, and the 600 has a much sportier appearance too, with the sort of the numerals and everything like that. I really do like that watch too.
Yeah. So I had a pretty crazy year. I made a New Year's resolution in 2024 that we wrote about on Worn and Wound, that I'd become a watch collector. Even though I've been in this space for 30 years and I've been, trading all the time, but I never really collected, right? I just went through watches, right? I call myself a serial monogamist when it comes to watch collecting. And I eventually started, I had one all the time, then maybe two, like a quartz number kind of thing that I'd wear on the side, quote unquote beater. And then, I decided this year that I'd now, again, with a little more time on my hands and a little more disposable income, that I'd be able to actually accumulate watches. And that's basically what I did this year. So I started the year with my Grand Seiko SPG 257, the green GMT spring drive. And I had a Marathon stainless steel navigator that I was wearing on a mesh trap. And that was my quartz that I'd wear at night because I love the tritium lume and all that stuff. And it was great. And then late last year in December, I received a couple of Finn Dyson Nautic Masters to review. I had a blue one and a I think it's like a taupe brown, grayish, faded dial kind of thing. And those are really cool. One was on bracelet, one was on strap. And they were absolutely bonkers impressive. Built like a tank, Damasco movement inside A26, I believe it's called. It's a movement made by Damasco using the exact same parts as an ETA 2824, but configured differently with a full balance bridge and specific oils, the same stuff that Damasco uses. So it's a very rugged movement. And after reviewing it, similar to what Longines did to you, I kind of wanted to finesse it on my own. And of course, I wanted a white dial. So I went with the white dial. I had them change the hands because the white dial had painted black hands, but I kind of liked the polished hands that were on the other models, the darker dial models, as they reflect, black is depending on the angles, and then, silver on other angles. And they're the black centerpieces, on the pinion. So it looked really, really cool. I had them use a smaller crown instead of the bigger crown on the previous model. So it sunk in the case a little more. And I had them put the crown on the left side. So it was a left-hand drive kind of model. And I had that for a while. I liked it very much, but it was very heavy. It was like 250 grams or something. Wow. It was a chunk of metal on the wrist. And again, I didn't have many watches at the time. I had my Grand Seiko and my Marathon. So I'd wear it a lot, and it just irritated my wrist. I didn't meld with it, right? So I wound up selling it. And I came across an opportunity to get a Tudor Ranger, which is a model that I always liked. And I liked the redesign with the new bracelet and the T-fit and all that stuff. And so I had to sell my Marathon Navigator, unfortunately, in order to combine the funds of the Nautic Master and that to get the Ranger. And I loved it. I mean, it was gorgeous. It looked amazing on my wrist. It was amazing for my lifestyle, the hiking that I do and the outdoor stuff. But the stupid T-fit clasp, and I mentioned this, I think, earlier, maybe offline, that it just ripped the crap out of the hair on my arm, like just where the link meets the case, meets the clasp. I'm telling you, I was actually bleeding a couple of times where it just ripped it out of my arm, several hairs at once. So that had to go. I sold that, and I still wanted a field type watch, so I wound up getting a Hamilton Khaki Expedition, which fit the bill perfectly. It was 41 millimeters on a bracelet that was super comfortable. Didn't pull any hairs. Kept a super accurate time. I had a really nifty bezel that, it was a compass bezel that rotated. It was very solid. I liked it very much. It was a lot of fun. That is, until I noticed that the hands weren't lining up. The hour hand was just past the hour every hour. And once I saw that, I just couldn't unsee it. And I put it in the box and I left it there. So I went on my time, now with, which is my Grand Seiko, and wound up going to Greece. And when I was in Greece, I found a dive watch, another Hamilton, go figure, the khaki navy scuba in 43 millimeters with the white dial with the blue hands. I was in Greece, blue and white. I mean, what better combination can there be? I still had the squirreled away funds from the leftover Ranger sale. So I bought it. And that was, my summer watch. I wore it all summertime. I did hike with it. I swam with it in the sea, in the pool, and it was just a fantastic fun watch, and that's going to be a staple in my collection. It's not going anywhere. Hands line up perfectly. Keeps great time. It's just a super fun watch, and when every time I look at it, it just reminds me of that vacation with my family. So that was that one. Then we had the Toronto Timepiece Show in obviously Toronto in September. And I was lucky enough to spend a couple of days with Jose and Isotope and Bob and with you, Brent, as well. And, Chris's 2 days with the Hydrogen watches and eventually fell in love with one of them. So I had to have one. And so I wound up getting a California dial version on that crazy, amazing leather strap. And I'm not a strap guy. I made that very clear with everyone. But this specific strap is so supple, it feels like a bracelet. And it just fits the wrist perfectly. That's a great watch. That's not going anywhere because every time I look at it, I think of that weekend and the amazing friendship that I've developed with Jose ever since. And then, I wasn't finished. Go figure. I had an opportunity to get an Ikigai Kami diver, which came in a couple weeks ago. It's a new model from them. They had a much wilder design that they were trying to kickstart, and it didn't work. They failed. I think the design might have been a little too wild for most people. And so he scaled it down, but not without losing any of the originality, right? The dial has this funky hexagonal pattern that shifts when you move the watch around, which is very neat. The case is super thin. I think it's just about a hair under 12 millimeters. Has a sapphire bezel, sapphire crystal, followed bracelet with screw links, a bracelet with micro adjust, the neat kind. There's a lot of bad ones, but this was a really good one. And all that for under $600. And I think when I got mine, it was under $500. It was $450. I think it was introductory price with a 9 series Miyota movement inside. It's keeping great time. Unbelievable. And then come just a couple of weeks ago when I started putzing around on Kijiji and then, watch recon and this and that. And lo and behold, there was a dude that had the Black Bay Pro in Toronto for sale in US dollars. I made him an offer in Canadian, just on a whim. I don't know why. I just hey, would you take this? And he said yes. And to my surprise, after my wanting the GMT and having tried them on and having, fallen in love with the Pro, the opportunity just seemed so serendipitous. I had no choice. I purchased it. I got it earlier this week and I'm head over heels with it. And it's unfortunate for the Ikigai because it's in the box now, but it's not going anywhere. I love it. So that's been my year. Luckily enough, I never had a watch box. I used to keep them on the shelf in my bedroom in the closet. And, now that I've become a collector, my friend James Fournier and I were together. We went to a Facebook watch meetup and he had this big 12, I think it's 12, maybe it's 16. I don't remember. I think it's 16. Box space, like eight on each side, right? This nice leatherette kind of box thing. And he had brought some watches with him to try to sell at the show and or at the get together. And when we're coming home, he was looking at the box. He said, "This thing's too big. Like my safe only fits these smaller." So I bought all these other boxes. I just use this for travel. He said, "Hey, do you want it?" I'm like, "Sure." So he gave it to me. And so now I have a watch box, like a real big boy collection.
That's
so
great.
Yeah, that's my year. So next question, what was your favorite or standout watch release of the year for each of us? How about you go first, Brent?
Well, normally I would not pick a watch that I haven't spent any amount of time with or had hands-on with, but I have to say that actually that new first Omega in space is a knockout for me. Some people talk about the Fotina, maybe the strange blue of the dial, etc. But having actually had hands-on with the original watch this year, the actual CK2 998, I think that they've done an amazing job with it. It really does conjure up the same feeling that watch does. And so for me, that's probably my knock it out of the park release for this year. But if I want to talk about ones that I've had hands-on with, I could easily add the Spirit Zulu Time Titanium to that list, or the Legend Diver that I picked up myself. I got a chance to see the IWC Portugueser Eternal, which is an insane, an absolutely hands-on, insane watch. And I also got to touch the Ulysse Nardin Freak S Nomad, which is the most expensive watch that I've ever held in my hand. And just, it's like magic to look at, absolutely like magic to look at. But sort of more in the realm of things that someday I could potentially pick up. But, the Zenith Defy Revival, that's, I think it's the A3648. Really like that one. And from Tudor, for all their releases, it's the monochrome that I like the best, actually.
Yeah.
So
I like the monochrome a lot too.
For me. Yeah, it has a very classic feel, like the way, and it's affordable in the way that a Rolex might have been in the past. And so I feel like this is the kind of the new Rolex sub, if you will, that is still somewhat affordable to the mere mortal. So yeah, it's a beautiful piece. So those are my favorites, I would say.
Yeah, that Tudor is pretty spectacular. It's unfortunately difficult to get at the dealership, and they're trading for way over what they're supposed to be trading. But that's with every Tudor, I guess, until the next big thing comes out.
What about you, Bob?
So I for myself, I kind of narrowed it down to watches that had gotten hands on with this year. Although the monochrome came to mind for me too, and I thought it was funny at the time when that was released that the releases at the Watches and Wonders end up being sometimes a little underwhelming, and it was kind of funny that the biggest hype watch was monochrome.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But,
that's telling.
But it is a cool watch. It is a cool watch. But the standout for me that I got to spend some time with to record a video on the channel and do some posts on Instagram was the Bel Canto Classic. After we had Mike Pearson on as a guest, his enthusiasm for the brand really rubbed off on me. I was always a big fan of Christopher Ward, but that really took it to another level. And that watch is beautiful. Plus, it is a lot of fun playing with that chiming mechanism.
It does have a beautiful sound. Absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah. So we mentioned 1-on-1 again. I'm going to stop doing that. But we were putting together a piece exactly on this, what our favorite releases are, or release single watch of the year was. And it's tough. Like, there were a lot of really neat things that came out. Like you said, the monochrome was great. I'm going to say the Isotope Mercury was a super cool watch seen in person. It's not for me. I'm not a dress watch guy, and it's a little tiny for me, but the attention to detail, the little things, the aspects, the little mercury globs on the dial, the convex, mirrored polished dial. It's just spectacular. Another one that interests me a lot was the Christopher Ward Lumiere diver, having to play with those. I got to play with them at a Red Bar. And then again, we saw them at the Toronto Timepiece show. Those were quite amazing. But the one watch that really stuck out for me, and it's a watch that I wasn't expecting, was the Milgraph from Micromilspec.
Oh, yeah, that was a great piece. Yeah.
And, I'd heard about the brand. I wrote up the quick release for them, again, on Word and Wound, not having held the watch, but just based off spec and about their history with the military and them being, military suppliers for years before even selling any watches to anyone outside of the military to civilians. But going to the booth and talking to those cool Norwegian dudes, go through all their watches, and then how excited they were about talking about this Milgraph, and then have it in your hand and how thin it is, and the really cool bezel with the cutouts that looks slick but isn't. The movement inside, the no date choice, the left hand choice. I think it's a super cool watch. I think they're going to be very successful with it. That's personally my choice, my favorite standout of the year. Unexpected, surprise of the year.
Yeah, great choice.
So next question is, recommend one watch related or adjacent gift idea. What about you, Bob? You first.
So I highly recommend getting the Watch Lover in Your Life good tools. I usually use Bergeon screwdrivers, spring bar tools, and they make a world of difference versus the cheaper ones. The cheaper ones tend to have softer steel, and you're much more likely to have a slip, damage your watch or your finger for that matter. I don't know about you guys, but I've poked my finger more times than I'd like to admit with a spring bar tool. If you're a watch person buying, yeah. And if you're buying some tools for your watch lover in your life and they're a little bit clumsy like me, maybe stick some Band-Aids in the stocking too. What about you, Brett?
Well, we've talked about this on the show before, and that's that frequently watch enthusiasts kind of share other hobbies. And one that people seem to share more than others is that of photography. I know that all three of us are interested in one way or another with photography. So, one of the things, the best little bit of kit that I purchased this year was the Coton Carrier Scout, and that's Scout with a K, G2 Sling style harness. And basically, what it does is it's a shoulder harness that has a really sturdy and robust clip to carry your camera. And I have carried some very big Fuji lenses on there. I've carried the 400 millimeter. I've carried the 140 there. And what it does is it frees up both of your hands. So you can do all kinds of other stuff. It's great for event photography. So I used it when we were shooting the Mito Red Bull stuff. The other thing is that for me, when I'm out and about with a camera, I can't stand having it around my neck. but it's also really inconvenient to be using a wrist sling. So this really just, it just takes the pressure off literally and figuratively. And you can walk around and do things for literally hours. And then all of a sudden, the moment you want the camera, it's really easy, quick release. And you can shoot whatever it is you want. My wife, immediately upon seeing it, had to get one for herself, in fact. So, it's really fantastic piece of kit.
Does the camera dangle there, or is it like hard on there?
Not at all. Not at all. It's hard in there. There's a special clip that screws into the bottom of your camera in the same way that you would for a tripod mount. And so it slides in on the side, and then naturally gravity tilts it so that it clicks into place. And all you have to do is basically unscrew that quickly to the left, and out it pops. So super, super convenient. And as I was about to say, under 100 Canadian.
Oh,
so,
wow.
A really good piece of kit.
So it's like almost free in US dollars.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. They're giving them away in the United States.
So for me, I've said this many times, I'm not a strap guy, but if I can recommend something watch related or adjacent, this is mostly related, my friend Aaron from Aaron Bespoke makes some of the best straps money can buy. I've seen the materials he uses. I've not visited his shop yet, but planning on going soon. Brett, if you want to come along and maybe write something up if you want to, or take pictures, or you'd be more than welcome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
His work is exceptional. He's such a nice guy. He's part of our friend group that we get together, have beers every once in a while. And I think if anybody needs a strap that wants something custom made, I mean, you can choose your material, your color. He'll match a dial color. He'll take measurements of your wrist and put holes only where they're needed, so the strap looks, uniform and beautiful. I highly recommend his stuff. If anybody's interested, look up Aaron Bespoke on Instagram. And then something else is a watch winder. Something I had a Wolf watch winder years ago. Never had any watches to put them in because I only had one, or two, and it wasn't worth it for me. So I wound up getting rid of it when I was upgraded or trading up. It was just part of the trade package kind of thing. But now that I've got multiple mechanical watches, I'm wondering if I should get another. So maybe a Wolf winder or Orbita, or maybe something less expensive would be nice. I'm wondering if the Grand Seiko can go in a winder. I'm not even sure. I've read things and there's all kinds of different opinions, but that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, a winder is a really cool idea. Some people say, hey, do you ever actually use them? And truthfully, I keep my my Speedmaster, which is an automatic Speedmaster, actually, in that all the time. And that's how I kind of just can visually see its accuracy. And I'm always pleasantly pleased by that. But, strange thing has occurred. I've ended up with 3 watch winders. So just tacking on to Mark, anybody interested in a watch winder, hit me up.
I'm going to hit you up right after we finish this call. Because I could use one. And the one that I had, the Wolf had variable rotations. So you could choose 800, 1200, whatever rotations per day. And then there's left or right.
Yep.
It was really neat. I thought it was a pretty cool winder. I had I think it was an Orbita Sparta. And we're going back like 15, 20 years. And this thing was really cool because it was a single winder. Had a diamond plating on the base, so kind of look industrial. And what it did is the watch would sit in it. It would turn the watch up until it was at a certain point where gravity took over, and then just swing the watch back.
Oh, very smart.
And it would do that, and it would swing it, and it would swing it, as opposed to constantly rotating it. So the battery would save forever. You could keep it in your safe for years. And apparently it was better for the watch. But the Orbita prices are bonkers. I think they're selling this thing for like $700 now. It was like $200 or $150 back then.
I've never been a user of watch winders myself, but I also have 2 or 3. So hit me up if anybody's looking for one too. Maybe we could start a little online shop for selling watch winders.
I need a winder. I'll talk to you guys right after this. All right. Our next question is not watch related. So let's have some fun here. So recommend one thing to watch. Bob, you want to go first?
Sure. There's a show that I've been recommending to everybody that are non-watch people, but this actually is somewhat watch related. And this is a show that it came out a few years ago. It's called Dark. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this or not. One of the main characters is actually a watchmaker, and it's all about time and time travel. It's a German show dubbed in English, but it's really good. It's on Netflix. If you have some downtime over the holidays, there's 3 seasons, and it's just an awesome show.
I'm already taking notes. That sounds fantastic.
Oh yeah.
It's
I'm watching
so
that.
good.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Right on.
I'm watching that. What about you, Brent?
Well, mine ended up being actually watch related too. And this is one of those cases where YouTube's algorithm actually worked, and it recommended something to me called The Watchmaker's Apprentice. It's
I heard of
it
this.
is fantastic. It's like I say, on YouTube, so it's free. And it is essentially the story of George Daniels' life and his handing of the torch to Roger Smith. So both of them appear in the video. This was done, a lot of the filming was done before George Daniels passed. And then, of course, there's a lot of sort of retrospective stuff about Roger Smith. Roger Smith had sort of a kind of a 7-year obsessive quest with impressing George Daniels and eventually apprenticing with him. Very, very cool. It's filmed almost exclusively on the Isle of Man. You get like a lot of really interesting images of George Daniels' workshop. So very, very cool. Now, it is a very traditional documentary. It's got the talking heads. It's got the voiceover. Don't expect anything Michael Moore-esque or anything like that. But, it's very interesting, especially if you are into watches. But again, my wife sat down as I was watching this and watched the entire thing all the way through and couldn't stop talking about it afterwards. So it is just on its own, even with its traditional documentary style, very, very compelling.
Yeah, Roger Smith was on Scottish Watchers talking about that.
Interesting.
About the whole thing and how much footage they had and how they were going to put together. So I'm glad it's out there. I forgot about it. This is, got some time during the holidays. I'm definitely going to watch that.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out too.
For me, I guess I didn't get the assignment. I chose something completely unwatch related. It has nothing to do with watches. But I wanted to choose something that my wife and I both really enjoyed, and that isn't, The Lincoln Lawyer or Silo or any of those new shows, which are fantastic, but something out of the blue, right? And it's a show called Maestro in Blue. There are 2 seasons, and it is Greek. So you can either watch it with English subtitles, or I think there's a dub version on Netflix that you can watch, their mouths moves and the words come out differently. But I understand a little bit of Greek, and my wife is Greek, so we watched it in the original Greek. It's basically this musician / teacher that's based in Athens, who's a music teacher, and he's invited to small islands to work with them to host and make a music festival. So he's there to talk to the residents and what music capabilities do you have? What do you play? Can you sing this and that? And he talks and all kinds of things happen. And if you think this is going to be some kind of romantic comedy, it's far from it. If you think it's just going to be some boring drama, far from it. There's mystery. I can't even tell you. It is such a well-made movie or show. Sorry, I keep thinking it's a movie because you know how TV shows are made nowadays. You're watching it in a big giant chunk, and you're binging it. It feels like you're watching a movie, and the quality these days, it feels like it's theatrical. So, anyways, Maestro in Blue. If anybody has some time over the holidays, I think it's just 12 episodes or maybe 14 altogether. I don't know, but watch that. That's a lot of fun. Not something you want to watch with little kids because there are some sexy scenes. So yeah, maybe watch it if you guys are adults. Next question. Recommend one thing to listen to. Brent, how about you go first on this one?
I was the one who suggested this as the question today, and then I had a hard time answering it myself. And the thing is that I think that a lot of the things I listen to, a lot of enthusiasts are already listening to. For example, The Great NATO is probably, my favorite podcast, and I'm sure that most of our listeners are already listening to that. But there is a kind of a cool one that's out there called That Watch Podcast. And again, you shouldn't watch it or listen to it with any little kiddies or anything like that, because there's quite a bit of profanity in that one. But it is rollicking good fun and very, very, very funny. But I actually, for my big recommendation, I went way back, and I went to the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. It was a podcast that ran from 2018 to 2021. And I came across it in 2020 and promptly went all the way back to the beginning and listened to every single episode as I was working out at the gym. John Green is the author of Fault in Our Stars and Paper Towns. And, he sold like 50 million books. It's incredibly popular. At one point in maybe 2014 or 2015, he was listed as one of the most 100 influential people on the planet. And he has since kind of receded from public view a bit. But this particular podcast, he takes two disparate subjects, let's say scratch and sniff stickers and the Indianapolis 500. And then he kind of weaves the two stories together, and then he gives them this very, very subjective 5-star rating. And one of my favorites is his take on the bubonic plague. I mean, I don't know how you give that stars, but it's just so interesting. And it's his voice and the way he draws you in with a story or a personal connection to the topic. He has a really strange way of looking at the world. And just this very calm, cool, collected style of approach, and very, very entertaining listen for that reason.
He's British, right?
He's American, actually.
Is he American?
He was born in Indiana, and I think that's one of the reasons he chooses the Indianapolis 500 to talk about. But he's lived in different places. Like he grew up in a different area, maybe Florida or something like that. Went to school in a different area. But yeah, he's American. I
think they're making new ones. Well, give me a second here. If you got nothing else or whatever, if you got something else to talk about, let me just do a little research here.
Yeah. Now, they have also released a book version of this. I can't remember when it actually came out, but it is a collection of essays. So if you're not into listening, you could potentially go and buy those seasons in a book of essays, which is also very cool.
Yeah, I think he was on Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson recently. And if I'm not mistaken, he's trying to do some more of these, some new ones. And for some reason, I can't find.
Well, I'll tell you, Mark, this is one of those moments where because I met it in 2020, he was still producing them as I sort of caught up and followed along. And then when he stopped, I actually felt a hole in my life. I really, really enjoyed listening to him. He just felt, listening to it makes you feel a little bit like the world has order.
Yeah.
And it's really, really cool.
Yeah, very cool. What about you, Bob?
Yeah, so this year I haven't been listening to a ton of podcasts, but one that I just discovered literally this week is Tales from the Tribe, which is hosted by Max Buser from MBNF. He had, I've only listened to a couple episodes so far, and I think it's pretty new. I think there's maybe 8 or 9 episodes out at the moment, but he just had Pi and Ken from Deluxe on yesterday. And it was really cool to get a bit more of info from them, directly from them on how they got started. There's, again, only a handful of episodes out there, but from what I've heard so far, I think it's worth a listen. Mark?
Very cool.
Yeah. Tales from the Tribe.
I'm an avid podcast listener, unfortunately, and music. I honestly thought you guys were talking music, but I'm glad you guys talked about podcasts. Two of my favorite podcasts that I've been listening to for at least a decade, maybe longer. This American Life, which has nothing to do with watches again. They take stories about anything, a day in a life in a diner, to correspondence in war-torn areas in the world, to anything. And they just make it so interesting. I mean, it's so well produced with great music, great narration, amazing editors, and hosts. I think it's a fantastic show. If you guys have never listened to This American Life, it's been around for a long time. They started off on the radio in Chicago, so this is a very well-run show. I recommend that. And the other one is The Moth. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of The Moth. It's basically stories that are told by people who have lived them at Moth events. So they call them story slams, where you go to a pub or someplace, and these people go up on stage and they just tell their story. And you got everything from, heroic stories to funny stories to disaster stories, and they're all told by normal people. They're coached and they're trained on how to tell a story because you have to make it interesting. It has to have a hook, and it has to have emotions and feelings and all that, so you can get involved and get into the story. And so I listen to that all the time. I've been listening to it for years. That too is very old. And so The Moth and This American Life for regular podcasts. As far as listening to other podcasts, you got to be listening to ours. Can't believe you guys didn't even mention it. How about reading? What do you guys recommend for something to read? Bob, go ahead.
For me, there's two easy ones. One would be anything by Mr. Mark Levesque over at Worn and Wound.
Oh, boy.
And two, The Calibrated Wrist. You got to go check it out. But another one, though, that I've been reading more since meeting in person at the Toronto show, Vincent Deschambault's site, Mainspring Watch. I like his stuff. He's got a cool photography style to go along with his article. So I've been going to his site quite a bit, too.
Nice dude, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he writes for the Calibrated Wrist a lot. I like it. It's a very conversational way of writing. He draws the reader in. It isn't just about specs and dimensions and all that kind of stuff. And he goes out of his way to do really cool stories like women and watches and stuff like that. Yeah, very big fan myself.
And Brent, what about you?
Well, so for me, hands down, I think the best thing that I read this year was Hands of Time: A Watchmaker's History by Dr. Rebecca Struthers. It's a meander, really, along the history of watchmaking, and it's interspersed with her own story of becoming a watchmaker. She has the mind of a scientist, but also the soul of a poet. It's just so interesting to have her perspective, especially because she is a woman in a male-dominated field. And, people can be really good in their field, but not be able to communicate that very well. And this is the opposite for her. She should have been a writer. It's just so compelling to read, and at some points so stunning in her turn of phrase and beauty that even if it weren't about watches, I would just say fantastic writer.
Yeah, she was on Scottish Watches as well and talked about her book. That's a good one for sure. Once again, I didn't understand the question, so I found something that I read that I really enjoyed and had nothing to do with watches. I used to be a really voracious reader. I'd read a book a week or every 2 weeks. My favorite authors are the ones that write escapism, not literary geniuses. Clive Cussler, Brad Meltzer, James Rollins, Dan Brown, Ken Follett. This is the kind of stuff that I really, really like. And one of the books that really stood out for me this year was a book by Ken Follett called Never. It's a political thriller with small incidents happening all over the world that, seem inconsequential, but lead to some major problems. And this book, after I was finished, shook me to the core. Like, it stuck with me for weeks. And my son also reads a lot. He's an English major, and I gave it to him to read. And I told him, look, if you're not in the right state of mind, or if you don't, if you're busy with school and other, don't read this. Like, make sure you got some time, because it'll change the way you see political issues and how small, inconsequential things can lead to some major, major, major problems. So if that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend it. Ken Follett is a brilliant writer. He wrote Pillars of the Earth, which turned into a TV series. And that was a phenomenal book. It's like 1,200 pages. This huge masterpiece. Very, very good. So anyway, so that's my recommendation for reading. And of course, go read Brent's stuff on Calibrated Wrist. Very important. What are you guys looking forward to for 2025 individually, individual projects, or for our podcast? Brent, you want to go first?
Yeah. For me, it's going to be a lot of travel. Since I left education in June, the big plan has been to eventually get out and take more advantage. And it's not that my life lacked travel, but I was always trying to fit it in around that sort of professional career. And so now that I'm just doing watches full time, it's allowed me to take full advantage of this. So we got a trip set up to New York for our Longines event in March. We're going to Geneva in April. We're also going out to Vancouver, as I know both of you guys are, for the Vancouver TV show. And we're also investigating the possibility of getting out to Newfoundland, maybe give Jamie a visit, and maybe even a trip down south in February. We're currently in the throes of looking at that. So yeah, for personally, it's going to be a big year of travel for me. And I mean, as for the podcast, I envision more of the same. I have really enjoyed this. I know that, Mark, when you reached out to me and to Bob, I was like, you know what? Yeah, that would be kind of interesting. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy it. I didn't realize how great the guests were going to be that we had on. And I look forward to this time on Fridays, with a great deal of anticipation, just to get together, chat watches, and sometimes to hear some really, really interesting individuals join us. So, that's what I see for 2025. How about you, Bob?
So I have some travel plans, watch-related and non-watch-related, coming up that I'm looking forward to. I'll tie in some watches somehow, but we're going on the 16th of January for the first time to Colombia, to the Cartagena area for a little bit of golfing, exploring the city, just beach time. So that's coming up very soon. Also looking forward to the Vancouver Timepiece show. That feeling of being around so many watch people all in one place, it's like a drug to me. I need my hits. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to. Another thing when it comes to the podcast is just seeing the growth of the podcast. We've had some great guests, and we have some great guests in the pipeline I'm looking forward to having on. It's the same as you. It's always a highlight getting up on our usual Friday morning, or getting up for our usual Friday morning recordings, and just looking forward to more of that in the new year.
Yeah, so unlike you guys, I don't have a lot of traveling planned except for maybe the Vancouver show and the Toronto show next year. What I do look forward to is just some more writing. Hopefully, I'm going to try to put this out there to try to write for more than just Worn and Wound and Calibrated Wrist, which I've done a couple, or one maybe. Get more out there, get more involved in community, and write some more. Like you, every Friday that we record is exciting for me. I like to prepare, and I enjoy it so much, and meeting all these guests, some of them friends of mine, some that I didn't know that all popped on, and it was great. And we've got some really great guests coming up. Just to run down a few for some fun here. So we've got William Messina coming in for January from Messina Labs. Also worked for Time Zone, has been around the community for as long as I have, maybe even longer. We've got Jose from Isotope, which we should have on very soon. Zoe Ebelson, who's a watch dealer, that renowned, a watch girl off duty on Instagram. We got Kat Shoulders from Worn and Wound that's willing to come on. Katlin Schmid from Norcane. RJ Kama, Super Doc. Roland Murphy from RGM. We got Chris Ansoulis, who's a freelance writer and started his own website called poppingcrowns.com. Andrew McCutcheon has given me the go-ahead. He wants to come on. Of course, he's got this whole thing in London going on, so it won't be for a while, but he's interested. Chris from the Watch Chris YouTube channel is interested in coming on. Aaron Bespoke talked about his watch straps, be interested. Cinziana Lordash, our mutual friend, she'd be interested in coming on. Michael Sandler, I don't know if you know who that is. Michael Sandler was a general manager for Time Zone back in the day, and is currently the 1916 company head buyer for them, and then also worked as a vice president of buying for Turno for a while. So that'd be an interesting guest. An old friend of mine, he and I worked on a website called watchzone.net 20 years ago, so he's a good friend. And of course, we're talking to TGV, which we're from the urban gentry that we're still trying to nail down, but that looks very positive as well. So 2025 should be a very exciting year. I'm really looking forward to it. Last question, going back to watch-related stuff. Are there any new prospects for the collection for 2025? Anything on the radar that you're looking for that you might get? What's your take on this, guys?
For me, I mentioned the Zinn 142. That's definitely a contender for entering the collection. But another brand that I've never owned and I've admired since I've been into watches practically is FOiS. They're going to be actually at the Vancouver show, by the way. But
oh yeah,
there's not a single watch of theirs I don't like. I have my eye on the Flieger F41. That's on the list, but maybe even one of their older Fliegers. I definitely want to visit or have some experience with having a FOiS in the watch box, hopefully in 2025. But for me, though, a lot of my purchases happen by chance. Maybe a friend is looking to sell or trade. I'll see something listed locally. So plans can go totally out the window very quickly for me. I also have a lot of friends like you guys that are enablers. So I could wake up in the morning with no intention of buying a watch. And by the time I go to bed, I have a new cool G-Shock or a Marathon on wrist. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I got to see one of those Fortis in Greece. There was the dealer where I got my Hamilton had that line, and I got to play with the new Cosmonaut, which is very impressive in person.
Yeah.
They're expensive, but there's a whole lot of watch there. I really like. I'm looking forward to seeing the entire line. Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know they were coming to Vancouver.
Yeah. What do you mean, Brent?
I'm hunting for a chronograph, actually, more in the nature of a racing chronograph, because I do own a couple of chronographs. But one of them that I have my eyes on is a vintage piece, and it's a brand that I've never owned. I don't want to spill the beans on it yet because I'm not sure that I'll pull that trigger or not, because there's also sort of a brand new watch that's in the mix that has just come to my attention, and I really, really like it. So I don't know. We're going to see how Christmas shakes out, and then we'll decide sometime in the new year which one we're going to go for. But for the majority of 2025, I think it will be unloading a lot of the watches that I'm not wearing and sort of consolidating that collection. My big goal is to kind of have down to about 8. So let's not talk about how many it actually is right now.
Yeah. I'm trying to do the same, but all these enabler friends of mine aren't letting me pare down. I'd love to be around 8 watches, but it's very difficult. It is very difficult.
I'm at about there, 8 watches, 8, 9 watches, and I'm having a hard time rotating them in. I still have that mentality of wearing my favorite one and the others just sit there. Like that Ikigai, it's killing me because I really, really love it, but my Tudor GMT just, it's so perfect. Honeymoon, big time.
I have a feeling, Mark, actually, that we're going to pass each other like 2 elevators. I'm going down and you're shooting up.
Exactly. One of us is going to have bigger pockets later on. I don't have anything planned. I mean, the aspirational Tudor GMT is finally taken care of. There's nothing else that I really, really want. Although you mentioned FOiS, I remember having that thing in my hands when I was in Greece, and it was just so cool. I think it was like 5,000 euros, I think, at the time, which is a little high. But still, I mean, it was such a cool watch. And something that bugged me about that watch was the extra numerals on the dial every 5 minutes and the tiny, tiny date display in a bigger window, which kind of looked, but in person, just like the Black Bay GMT or the Black Bay Pro, I mean, in person, it just worked. I liked it. The bracelet's phenomenal. The clasp is genius. Doesn't taper though. So that, it's a big honking thick bracelet. But anyways, like I said, I don't have much planned. It's very much a surprise. Often the opportunity stuff, like you said, Bob, work with a brand or you do something and something comes across your desk or across your screen and you fell in love with it and you have to have it. So I'm looking forward to next year. Tudor is always a surprise. Let's see what they're going to do this year. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, this year's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. So that's our show for today. On behalf of all 3 of us, thank you everyone for listening. And we wish you all the best for this holiday season. Almost forgot. Please, if you can, subscribe, review, and I'll do all that happy stuff. Every little bit counts and helps us get the word out and grow the show. You can also follow us on Instagram. I'm at Mark Time to Watch. Bob is at Time to Go 1978. And Roby's at Calibrate 321. And our show is at Time to Calibrate. We are looking forward to 2025 and a lot more exciting times. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
See ya. Cheers.